On behalf of the World Forum for Ethics in Business, we welcome you to the biggest global summit of the year on changing paradigms in a pandemic world, how to regain trust. The World Forum for Ethics in Business is a public interest foundation registered in Belgium. Today, on the occasion of the World Health Day, World Forum for Ethics in Business has invited leading experts like yourselves to put into perspective the current ethical and other implications and consequences of the pandemic on our health, our work, and our life. During the course of the session, feel free to tweet, give likes, and ask your questions on the YouTube or Facebook chat channels. We have many people that are following us all over the world for the next hour, so we wish, of course, also welcome to all the public from over 100 countries. My name is Inge Andersen, and I want to welcome you all to this most interesting conference, Changing Paradigms in a Pandemic World, and the topic, the impact of COVID-19 on sports. I am honored to lead a world-class panel with the best coaches and sports people from all over the world. We will find the answers on the following questions today. How can sports be a part of the solution? How can sport be a tool to bring people and society together again? And through sport, many people can create a new, meaningful daily life again with purpose, belongingness, and togetherness. This is this excellent team I have together with me today from India to Los Angeles, and I will present each in this excellent sports panel before they are speaking. I have given each speaker 6 to 7 minutes to an introduction to this topic, this very important topic, and then the last 20 minutes then we will use for questions and discussions. And we will start today with Mr. Pullela Gopichand. Pullela, he is the national coach of badminton in India, and he has also won the All England Open Badminton in his history. I think it's back in 2001, and he participated also in the Olympic Games in Sydney in 2000. And I will believe that he is now coaching some of the main favorites also for the Olympic Games in Tokyo this summer. So, Pullela, welcome from India, and how is the situation for the sport in India at the moment? The floor are yours.
Thank you very much, Inge. Very good morning, afternoon, evening to all of you across the world. Well, for me, the last year and a half, more than a year, has been a kind of a revelation and very different for somebody like me who's been playing sport for the longest period of time. The last year has, without being travel, has really changed a lot of things. For a lot of senior athletes, it's been very different. Nothing that we have imagined like this would happen. But also, it's a time where I think general population across the board have started to look at themselves to make themselves more physically and mentally stronger. And the need for physical fitness and sport has come out to the fore more than ever before. For us as a nation which has not been a great sporting nation or a culture, I think the last year especially with COVID scenarios and immunity being very dependent on physical fitness, people have started to look at sport very differently. For me, I think it's time for us as a human population to look at sport beyond medals. Because for too long, I think the race to win has led many people leave sport. And I think that should be addressed. And that is very, very important. I think each one of us, to be the best versions of what we can be, is something what we should look at. Because as we see, when we cannot compete, it's all the more important that we start to compete against ourselves to become the best versions of what we can be. And that is what the scenario for me is. I think for too long, we have competed and we wanted to win against people. And I think now it is time for us to re-look at that and start competing ourselves against ourselves to become the best versions of what we can be, to able to run as fast as we can, to jump as high as we can. And it's an individual effort. I think that is very, very important. The sport has been affected. Yes, a lot of top players have lost because many people across the world and many professions across the world, maybe a year in a 30-year career may not be big. But if you're a career which is lasting only about 3 to 4 years or 10 years, and if you've lost a year, year and a half, then it means that you've lost about 10% of your career because of the pandemic. So people have lost time. It's all the more concern, worrying for a lot of people who are coaches who've lost livelihoods, support teams, ground personnel who've actually lost jobs on the ground. I think it's very, very important. And there is definitely support which these people need, especially in India, where many of them come into the unorganized sector. Another area which is of big concern is the fact that we have many junior athletes and second rung athletes who didn't get a chance to compete or start competing again. And I think that's a cause of concern because that area will leave a vacuum in the years to come. When a kid is 18, he is looking at being the next world champion in the junior or a national champion or a state or a provincial champion. But this 1 year which he has lost would mean that he would jump from there to the seniors, which is actually valuable time which he has lost. So we have a lot of kids who could have been potentials and great junior athletes who were looking at winning at the junior level to jump into the seniors. But unfortunately, because of this scenario, they've lost it. So I think my heart goes out to them, and there is a concern in that area. Another area which is of concern is people who would have started, all of us in India at least, and I'm sure many parts of the world, started probably a summer coaching camp. We have not had any summer coaching camps last year and probably this year as well. So this vacuum will come to the fore in maybe 2 or 3 years or 5 years from now. We don't have we don't have swimming pools and indoor stadiums open yet. So when we open up and 5 years down the line, we'll see a vacuum of 18-year-old kids because somebody didn't start the sport when he was 11 or 12. I think there are concerns, but I would really close my remarks by saying that I think it's an opportunity to look at human potential and re-looking at sport beyond medals, because sport is much more important than medals. I'll stop at this and thank you for this wonderful initiative and opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Pullela. Really interesting to hear from India. You are, together with China, the biggest country in the world with a huge population. And as you said, and we will come back to that, training and physical activity is really, really important for the children. The next speaker will be Mrs. Anja Hammerseng-Edin. Anja, she is from Norway. She is sitting not so far from me here in Oslo. She was a Norwegian professional handball player. She has a bronze medal at the World Women Handball Championship in China in 2009. She has a lot of good matches also in Champions League, and she is working a lot nowadays with sport and mental health. So I give the floor to Anja Hammerseng-Edin. Welcome, Anja.
Thank you so much, Inge. And dear Pullela, you touched my heart by saying the words that you did. So thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here. And I just want to share a story with you, because when COVID broke out in Norway 1 year ago, we saw these young athletes coping with uncertainty. We saw how scared they got when they lost the ability to go to the arena, meet up with their teammates, and they were used to having full calendars, but now they were empty. So they didn't know what to do. And the questions were like, okay, what will happen now? Who am I without the sports? And what does the future hold? So there was a lot of uncertainty, and we didn't know what the future would hold for them. But we knew one thing, as Pullela just said, that we need the feeling of belongingness. We need to belong. We need each other. And so I got this feeling that the labels, they disappeared now. We were no longer athletes, doctors, teachers. We were now humans, trying to take care of each other, trying to cope with this together. And so we found this great opportunity to actually see, okay, so we know that this is going on. We don't know for how long, but we know that we can now create this great online community. Even though we can't see each other face to face, we can still feel each other. We can still develop skills together. So we developed this community online for young athletes in Norway, so they could meet up every week and develop skills online. They could do physical training together online via Zoom like we're doing now. And they could also talk to each other and have the feeling of being a part of this fantastic community that has their backs and that supports them and trusts them, and the feeling of being important for another person. So we developed this team, and we saw that the young athletes, they had a lot of time now. The schedule were canceled. But we also asked the questions, okay, so these young athletes, they have a lot of spare time now, but who else got a lot of time now? So we found that the pro athletes, they were going to be in the Olympics, but the Olympics were now postponed, so it wasn't going to happen. But the pros had now a lot of time. So we got to get the young players to meet up now with the pros on Zoom. And that was actually created as an opportunity that we would never seen if it hasn't been for COVID. So now it was this feeling of young players being able to talk to the pros, asking questions, learning how to develop skills, learning how to stay focused. And they also learn how to develop their mindset, develop their meditation practice, how they can cope with uncertainty and all of these things that we actually just feel inside. But in Norway, we need to learn how to cope with this. Not just experience it, but we also need the strategies to cope with that. So we really got to learn that. So now we find in Norway that these 14 to 16-year-old athletes, they have a bigger team than they had before the COVID broke out. Before the COVID broke out, they had this 14, 15 players that they were used to hanging out with every day. But now they have this huge online community that takes care of them, that wants the best for them, and they feel that they belong. And I think that if there's something we can learn from this, I think that no matter what we achieve, no matter how many gold medals we have, like you said, Pullela, we are all just humans. We need each other. We don't always just need to thrive after more, to achieve more, to accomplish more. Maybe it's time to see that the biggest contribution we can do is actually being human, showing heart, and also prioritize learning what we know. So every live session we have, we tell them young players, now please take a look at what's happening here. Take a look at these players. They were going to be in the Olympics, but they're not. They're here, they're teaching you skills. Please remember that when you grow up, when you are going to be the national athlete standing there in the Olympics or in the World Championships, please remember the opportunity to give back to a society that needs you. So thank you.
Anja, thank you very much. Then we will go on to Rome and to Italy. We will now meet Professor Dr. Adolfo Panfili. He is president of the International Association for Orthomolecular Medicine in Italy. He is the author of numerous articles and books. He has been working really a lot with physical training, and many places in Italy has been really hard attacked from the COVID-19. So the floor is yours, Adolfo.
Let me pinpoint that I want to say hello to all my students that are now connected and are following us from the University Popolare of Milano, where we stay the first international faculty for orthomolecular and naturopathy in the world, the first one. So the question you give us is very interesting. So what will be the future and what will be the meaning of sport? Just trying to reconnect people. People act like neurons. Neurons need fire to compete and to share information. So the basic influence of man is the socialization. Arthur Comte and Durkheim stated about 1.5 centuries ago, then we are social animals. So we need connection, because without connections, we cannot interact. And what we are losing now is the chance to share, the chance to learn. Whenever we are connected with somebody, we make our connections. So think about then, over the course of a lifetime, the average person normally meets around 10,000 people, which is a lot of people. But think about if each of these 10,000 people can change the life to about 10 people. And of these 10 people, they can change the life to others 10 people. And this is a kind of progression that can give us the concept then, if we meet people and we can change the life of other people, the human connection with sport is very important, because we learn through the interaction. So if we meet about 10,000 people in a lifetime, and of these 10,000 people, we can change the life to 10 of these, and of these 10, we can change the life to other 10, and so on. In 5 generation time, which is about 125 years, we'll have the change, we have changing the life of about 800 million people, which is the double of the American population. That's amazing. This is an amazing number. And think about then, if we had one more generation, according to the logarithmic scale, we'll have to change the lives to about 8 billion people, which correspond to the whole population of the world. It may seem strange, but if you consider, then I am a surgeon. If I wake up in the morning completely drunk, and I go in the OR and I give surgery to 10 people, if I am drunk, I will kill 10 people. So I will change the life not only of these 10 people, also to the son of these 10 people, then I will kill because I'm drunk in the OR. And they won't be able to live also the nephew, the grandnephew, and so on. So think about this, then our behavior can change the life. So what's happening here today can change the world. So we meet about 10,000 people in our life. We can change the life of about 10 at least over these 10,000 people. But 10 by 10, in 5-time generation, we can change the life of about 800 million people, the double of the American population. Give one more generation, and we can change the life of 8 billion people, the whole world population. So interacting, sport is interaction, because we learn with our mirror motor neurons, we learn, we fire our neurons. So without physical interaction, without competing, without moving at the stadium, we are losing a lot of this capacity to expand and to connect our neurons. And this is why we have to come back in this pantomime of life, because sport is a pantomime of life. And we are, you know, like that man who was walking alone along the beach, and he saw 2 footprints, one of his and one of God. And during a moment of depression and deep sadness, he saw only one imprint. Thinking that he has been left alone, he began to despair and wonder why God had abandoned him. Infinity answered him. And he said, I will never abandon you. When you see a single footprint, it means then I'm carrying you on my shoulder. So we should close our eyes and try to feel this deep contact, perceiving, practicing sport. So we need to be back. Sport is a big instrument, and the way of behavior, the way of connecting through sport will help us to grow up. We are nothing without any kind of connection, interaction. So let's think about this, and let's think about this thirst we have, and we can feel alone, but in reality we are always in good company. So the company is here, and we have to be back to normality, re-expanding the interconnection that belongs to sport. That's my suggestion.
Thank you very much, Adolfo. Very interesting. Very interesting to listen on you. Then the next 6 to 7 minutes, I will give the floor to, we can say, a football legend from Germany, Christoph Daum. He is a professional football manager and also a TV expert, and of course also a former player. He has won 8 trophies with clubs from Germany, Turkey, and Austria. He is, especially here in Norway, well known from his many years coaching Köln, where he had huge success, and he has been national coach for Romania and also in Germany. So, Christoph, then I give the word to you. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Inge. It's a pleasure for me. I also want to give a very warm welcome to all our speakers and to our audience. The COVID-19 pandemic is a real challenge for all of us in this world. Yes, of course, we have to follow the rules of the government in every country. My clear position is being loyal to commitments or obligations of the government and also the health department. Loyalty, responsibility, integration, open communication, transparency, integrity are the glue, as we have heard before, that build good relationship all over the world. Our speakers and I want to inspire others to become part of possible solutions concerning physical activities during pandemic times instead of complaining. Preventive behavior, that means correct hygienic behavior, is vitally important to protect their own health and the health of all people around us. Yes, the social distancing, the inability to move free, wearing a mask cause a feeling of isolation, or sometimes stress or even depression or diseases by this uncertainty. Yes, all of these restrictions and even much more, every death of a beloved person affected our lives dramatically. I send my condolences to all these people, and I want to mention that last year, during the first shutdown, the German Football League has created a hygienic concept for the professional football. This concept, made in Germany, has been checked by the government and especially by the health department, and allows the professional sport a safe reopening without spectators. It worked well because in professional sports, all these teams and athletes have a 24/7 medical service. This includes a permanent testing and a strict monitoring of every player and the whole staff. The German Football League created a bubble which allows to train and to have competition in a safe and controlled way. This became a worldwide model and allowed the top sports athletes to be active even without spectators at the event. The next step is now a controlled reopening with limited spectators at sportive events. Professional sports is an entertaining business and still well paid by TV sponsors. I believe that the COVID pandemic will have a great impact on a renewing process in professional sports. I don't know now what professional sports will look like in a post-pandemic world, but for sure it must change. Concerning amateur sports, leisure sports, which includes elderly, vulnerable, or handicapped people especially, we have to work on possible solutions for the youth sports. The societies needs clear recommendations, guidance, and support. Clear and shared objectives provide direction and purpose, also builds cohesion and trust. A clear accountability orientation motivates people to fight and to succeed this pandemic situation. We have to find a balance between short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. We have to inspire people to be on track in a safe, sustainable, healthy, and progressive way. I'm sure together we will achieve our targets. I'm convinced that it's possible to map out the processes and time frames for achieving our goals. Already, short-term frames shows improvement, so everyone can see and feel the progress we are making. This is essential in keeping people motivated and feeling confident. I want to encourage everyone to think, to work for the overcome of this pandemic. My wish is that we have a strong commitment and a deep understanding that everybody is an important part in this puzzle. This puzzle will be characterized by success or sometimes by failure. I'm open for a wide range of possible solutions, even they are right now out of our control and not scientific proof. Therefore, we have to establish in a safe way a suitable risk management, which allows us as much as possible to be physically active. Physical activities must become a common habit. Like we have learned to brush our teeth, sports can, it must be the same with sports. Sports can stabilize our immune system and will have a helpful impact on a mental and our social life. We have to discuss what kind of education we have to give to our coaches, to our people, to build up a mindset, because this is a new situation and we have to learn a lot, and old models will not work. We have to look for new models.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Then we are going directly from Germany to United States and to Los Angeles. I wish Mr. Tom Farrey, the Executive Director and founder of the Sports and Society program in the Aspen Institute, welcome. I met Tom first time for some years ago in Washington, D.C., and Aspen Institute is one of the most important think tanks for sport and social development for young people in United States. And also you, Tom, are coming from a country, are living in a country that has been really hard attacked from COVID-19. And how is now the situation in sports in USA?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Inge, and really everyone who put on the forum here. It's a real honor to be with everyone. You know, sports has been deeply affected by the pandemic in this country. You know, at the Aspen Institute, and particularly our program, we track this from a research point of view. You know, a little bit of background. So Project Play, which is the entity that we do all this work through, it's basically we convene the leaders of sport in the United States to become, as someone said earlier, you know, the best version of sport that we possibly can be in this country. So we collect a lot of data, we mobilize leaders, we elevate the best ideas, we try to drive impact through that. So what we've seen in the pandemic are several trends. Number one, and this is kind of positive, we've seen a lot more family activity. Because sports have been shut down, people were having family dinners again, they're getting out, they're doing hikes, they're biking more often, they're surfing. It's hard to buy a bike, it's hard to buy a lot of equipment these days because people are doing individual things where there's social distancing. And that's good because there's been a trend away from individual activities and more toward team activities, which are terrific. But the pandemic has really elevated the opportunities for individual sports and family activities. Second of all, and this is a positive as well, it got a lot of families off of I call the hamster wheel that youth sports has become. You know, it's become very commercialized in the US at least at a very early age, where kids are put on travel teams and parents are writing $2,000 and $3,000 checks for their children to play a sport and going all over the state or across the country to have them play games, sometimes against a team that's one town away. And so that shut a lot of that down, not all of it, but a lot of it. Another positive has been virtual training. So you heard earlier about the benefits of people connecting online. We've seen more, you know, group workouts, and that's been a real positive development too. But the bottom line is that overall the population is less physically active than it was in the past. And we're also seeing significant mental health concerns. A lot of children, in particular, athletes, you know, they're not quite sure what to do with themselves. They've lost that connection. One of the great things about sports is the social benefits. This is why children play sports. Yes, they want to win. Yes, they want to compete. But our surveys show that well above that, consistently with little kids, adolescents, or even adults, it's really for a social experience. It's a chance to do something in a physical setting with other people. And so, you know, physical activity rates are really down, mental health is down, and team sports I mentioned are down as well. The greatest impact has really been in disadvantaged communities in the US. So families with money have found a way to keep going, but it's the kids who are at the low income levels who have lost their programming at the park and recs and the YMCAs and the Boys and Girls Clubs. And some of this isn't going to come back. So we're at a real, this divide between sport haves and have-nots in the US has gotten wider during the pandemic. It's a significant factor that we have to work with here. We're also seeing an uptick in injuries, and it's a bit anecdotal in this case, but as the pandemic lifts here in the US, club teams and school teams are anxious to get back into business, and these kids are sometimes playing 4 and 5 and 6 games a week, and my son busted his ACL going from 0 to 60 first game of the, in a year. So significant health concerns across the board. So I think this is really kind of an inflection moment in this country. It's a historic moment on what we want the sport model to be coming out of this. We do know there's greater demand for sports than ever before because things have been shut down. Our surveys show that 30% of adolescents have greater desire to play sports than they did in the past, and only 16% of kids have less desire to play sports in the past. But will the system be able to meet the demand for the quantity of experiences and the quality of the experiences? So we've done a lot of thinking about that within Project Play, about how to build this new model for sports in this country. And it's really about reinvesting in community-based play, local, low-cost, affordable social experiences for kids. The travel team thing, the highly competitive thing, they're fine. They're going to do their thing. But how do we build up those experiences for the average athlete or the below average athlete or the kid who maybe has disability or otherwise, so classmates can play with classmates? So the things we've been thinking about how to do this are really 4 components. One is just to simply establish that children have a right to play sports in this country, and they have certain rights in sport. Now, I mean, this is one of the great things about being friends with Inge is I have learned from how Norway did this. Their children's rights in sport document was foundational in creating a better sport system. Japan has created one as well. They launched in 2018. The European Council, I know, is looking at this issue of children's rights in sport. So we're going to push forward that conversation here in the United States about establishing that right. Number 2 is enhancing the capacity of local providers, just giving these boys and girls clubs and the park and recs the ability to deliver quality programming. That's a matter of partnerships and technology. Third is funding community-based play. So a couple of very positive things that have come out of the pandemic are last August, the federal government committed to spending $900 million a year on parks, about half of which will go to national parks, and about 30 or 40% will go to state and local communities for matching grants. This is an opportunity to get more infrastructure built. It's funding that has been sought for decades, and we got it only because the pandemic came along, because of that sense of crisis. Second of all, just yesterday, the state of New York passed, legalized, mobilized mobile sports betting for the first time, the largest, sports betting community in the U.S. And part of that money is going to go toward youth sports. Again, this is an idea that I learned about and wrote about a couple of years ago. It was baked into this legislation, thanks to Norway and thanks to some of the other countries that have used this model. We absolutely pull ideas from elsewhere. And the fourth and final thing is just sports governance. In the US, we do not have a Ministry of Sports, some Department of Sports and Recreation to coordinate sport activity. So we think there's a real conversation about creating governance that can balance competing interests. And if we can do that, we can build what we call in Project Play, sport for all, play for life communities. But a lot of work to do, and we'll share all of this with our international partners at Aspen. There's a Project Play in Romania and Mexico as well. And very exciting times and very challenging times. So back to you, Inge.
Thank you very much, Tom. We have now approximately 18 minutes back to have some questions, and and all of you have been speaking about the needs in these days of physical education and sports. You have spoken about the meaning of the sports, and also that this situation with isolation has given the possibility to look in new ways, we can say, find new roads to do our sports. And I go back to you, Pullela, in India. Directly, what new possibilities have you seen out of the crisis for the sport and badminton, especially then, that you are working with in India?
I think as far as we are concerned, I think online classes have been something which have gone on. As far as professional athletes are concerned, people who are competing are concerned, they've kind of stayed on with the sport. The people who are less into sport are the ones who are not taking up the sport or just taken up the sport are the ones whom we've lost majority of the times. For me, the biggest thing has been the knowledge transfer which has happened. The resources which have been online have been great because players, and especially in India with this vast population and with this, with the diversity in culture and also the language, to have resources or people come over to learn things was a big challenge. That gap seems to have been lessened thanks to the COVID-19, because we now have more information online available and a lot more access and an interactive community which has grown through these Zoom classes, which have actually made more people accessible to knowledge. So that's something which I think is a positive. The negative side, as far as competitive athletes are concerned, they still have to continue playing the sport because they've invested enough time and energies. But the younger kids or people who have just taken up the sport or going to take the sport are really confused how long and whether they will make this into a career. So that's an area which has been of concern.
Thank you very much, Pullela. And then back to you, Anja. You are from one of the most popular sports in Norway, a team sport, an indoor sport, handball, where we have had a lot of success. And you have also contact with a lot of young athletes in the handball sport. You have to be creative when you are working with the young people in a team sport that not in periods could train together. How has this experience been, Anja?
Well, to me, it's been amazing because I have been able to be in touch with all of these amazing young athletes who have also been in touch with these pro athletes, their heroes. So they have been teaching their skills to these young athletes. So I think that journey has been amazing. But at the same time, I see your point about being creative. And for these young athletes, they still want to develop their skills in handball, even though the arena is closed. So yes, we can do that physical training, we can do that strength training and everything, but they still want to develop the handball skills. So what we did was we contacted some television stations in Norway and asked them to let us have these championship clips, matches from the young athletes as heroes, when Norway was playing against Denmark, when the Champions League been playing, and so that the young athletes could actually see their heroes and go in and learn handball online. So they got to know, why is this working? How can we analyze this? And then we analyze these clips together. So they were able to create this understanding about how a great handball player actually thinks and what the opportunities are in the arena.
Saying, in fact, Anja, is that this period, this year, has given, that has opened quite new doors, and the mind has been more open for new impulses by the young people. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my opinion. We see that the athletes now are more able to think creatively by themselves, and they're also able to understand their role in this society. They're just not striving to win their gold medal so that they can feel like they have accomplished something in their lives. They know their values. They know that I have a heart and I'm only human. So I think that both creative thinking about developing skills, but also the impact it has on being an actually human. No matter what you accomplish on the field, you're still a human and you need to contribute on the society, and we need each other. So I think it's been rough, yeah, but we have learned a lot, and that's the amazing part.
Thank you very much, Anja. Really interesting. And to Adolfo and back to Italy. You are professor, you are doctor. You have met many, many different cases in your time as a doctor, but you said something about it has been important to find the meaning in life through sports. And you used the word socialization quite many times in your speech, Adolfo. That is really interesting. Could you say something more about why you have taken this point of view to share with the world today?
I think, my friend, then the basic instrument of sport is empathy. I have been practicing in the national team for rugby. I was a rugby player, and I climbed 2 times the Everest, and I am a pilot, helicopter pilot. So I like competition. Whenever you compete, you try to imitate somebody. Sport is a matter of imitation. And mirror motor neurons have been associated with empathy towards emotion, and imitation are missing in patients with autism. This kind of lockdown is giving us a kind of autism, is a functional autism. You know, the concept is then we no connection, there is no empathy. If there is no empathy, we do not release endorphin. Endorphin are the salt of life, and we need the serotonin, we need acetylcholine. We cannot be like a gazelle trying to escape. So when we are trying to escape, the gazelle, with the Leo trying to catch her, doesn't think to eat, doesn't think to make love or to reproduce herself. So sometime in this moment, we are like the gazelle, we are stressed. So we have to be back to the rewarding. Rewarding means that whenever you discover something, you meet somebody, you interact with sport, the reward is endorphin. Our endorphins are serotonin. If you don't have serotonin, it's like to say that you have the half empty glass. If you have serotonin, there is a half full glass. So sport can make us with a half glass full. So we have to be back, because interaction, sport means empathy. We know empathy, there is no life, there is no happiness, there is no competition is a good seed. Not competition because you have to fight somebody and you must kill him. No. Competition means that we are different, but we can be integrated. So sport is the basic of integration. So this lockup is not good at all. So we have to be back to the empathization. This was the basic of my speech. Very simple reflection. Thank you for your question, Inge.
Yeah, thank you, Adolfo. It was really interesting to listen on your answer here. And then I go back to the biggest sport in the world, football. And to you, Christoph, Daum, you are an expert. You are a TV commentator nowadays. And here in Norway, I have to use 20 seconds that we are now, I say, owning probably the most attractive football player in the world at the moment, Mr. Erling Braut Haaland. He is playing for Dortmund. I could have asked, where will Mr. Haaland play in the next season? You can think about that, Christoph. Perhaps you have the answer. But the second thing is, in football, it's a huge industry. It's a huge, it's spending a lot of money. And how long can the elite football play without publics in the stadiums? And when will some of the elite clubs come in deep trouble in the economical way? The floors are yours, Christoph.
Thanks, Inge. First of all, I will give a telephone call to Barcelona or Madrid. Even I spoke with Michael Zorc from Borussia Dortmund. They still believe that Haaland will stay in Dortmund, but his father and his agent have been, I think, not only just to say hello in Spain, but on on the other hand, professional football, for me, is not a good example because it's well paid. Still, we are facing financial difficulties. But the question is, if you will earn 10 million per year or maybe 5 million per year, so what's the difference? I think, as I said it before, professional football has to go through a renew process. We have to shorten salaries, commissions, and a lot of other things, because even if it's a business, it developed in a wrong way, and a lot of people in leading position in football have seen that in this situation that was caused by the COVID virus, it's nothing for me new. It's something I would say it's just brought alive the problems of this professional football, which has to find a new way. But for me, it's much more important, how can we help the amateur football, other things, leisure sports, and so on. It's like only a small piece of the iceberg, the professional sports. Of course, they are idols, they are role models. And as we have heard before from Dr. Adolfo, people are identifying with idols. That's right, and we need them. But on the other hand, we have to think about the amateur sports. And as we have seen it, there's a shutdown in schools, and I have also children who go to school. They were really unsatisfied with this online homeschooling, and I think that's the same with our coaches. Our coaches has never learned what it means to have an online connection with their players or with their athletes. We have to renew our coaching programs, what it means to stay in touch online with our athletes, not only for giving some exercises, home training plans, also to be in touch, to keep them mentally healthy. There we have to go new ways. We have to think about how maybe at the beach we have safeguards. Yes, why we cannot educate safeguards for public areas where children can play in a controlled, safe way with safeguards. I can give you a lot of, let me say, recommendations or inspirations how to handle, how to overcome this situation. Yes, I think we are on a good way. I'm positive. We have achieved a lot, but the next pandemic situation is right now in front of our door. It will not be over when we have vaccination and we have stopped this COVID virus. The next will come. So we have to prepare for the future when the next pandemic situation will appear.
That brings me directly to you, Tom, again, and United States. You were talking about this new sports model that you will believe and hope will come to United States, that much more of the young children can be part of the sports society. So what do you think in 1.5 minutes now? What does the new reset look like in United States?
Well, the reset starts with a commitment to resetting, not just going back to the way things were done previously. And bearing in mind the fact that even though the US may be known as the world sports superpower in perhaps some sports or otherwise, we still don't have, most children still do not have a sustained sports experience that's going to be able to develop them. We have too many kids who are pushed out locked out, just shut out from quality experiences into the teenage years, which is really unfortunate. And I think the key is keeping the research in mind. We know that kids who are physically active and play sports are 1/10 as likely to be obese. They're more likely to stay in school. They're more likely to go to college. They're less likely to suffer any number of chronic diseases, including 13 types of cancer. They're more likely to be active parents. And because of that, they're more likely to be good role models for their kids. And their kids think that's just how I live, is we're running and we're doing things that are active. So that's the key, is to understand the value proposition that sports offers, including addressing a number of the challenges that we have in our society around social cohesion, educational advancement, gender equality, racial equality. Sport is an incredibly powerful tool. And if we treat it as that powerful tool and not as sort of a subset of the entertainment industry, something that's on the side, then we're going to be able to move our society forward.
And thank you very much, Tom. And then that brings me to one of the biggest leaders in our history, Nelson Mandela from South Africa. He said once that the sport has the power to change the world. And nowadays, I think, and my advice will be that we need to use this period to do a lot of innovation in children's sport, in youth sport, and also, of course, in elite sport, as also Christoph Daum spoke about regarding football. But it will be an Olympic Games in Tokyo in a few months without people could travel in to Japan to look at the biggest event in the world. And that is something totally new, but that gives also an incredible possibility to think new. I will say thank you very much to this really excellent panel. We would like to continue this important conversation with you that has been listening to us tonight, today, or this morning, wherever you are in the world. So we will continue this important conversation with you in the month to come. We request you to be in touch with us and to follow the various World Forum in Ethics in Business social media properties. So we are delighted that the World Forum in Ethics in Business invited us to this global event, that we could take part from this panel from many different places in the world. And thank you again to all of you